I never thought I would be the kind of woman who would sit down and write something like this. But here I am, with my life falling apart, trying to put into words how I ended up destroying the only person who ever truly loved me. My name is Maya, I'm 45 years old, and I was married to John for 20 years. We built a life together, a family, a home. And I betrayed him in the worst possible way. When I met John back in college, I was shy and quiet. I didn't have much experience with men. In fact, I was still a virgin when we met. John, on the other hand, was tall, athletic, confident, and much more experienced. He was the kind of guy other girls noticed, and somehow he chose me. At the time, I felt lucky, like I had won something I didn't deserve. From the start, he was patient with me. He taught me about love, about intimacy, about building trust. I was nervous in the beginning, but he never made me feel ashamed. He was kind, gentle, and he always put me first. Over the years, though, I realized I wasn't adventurous like he sometimes wanted me to be. I didn't like trying new things in bed. I wasn't the type to talk dirty or experiment. John suggested things once in a while, but I usually turned away. And I thought he understood. We fell into a routine. Intimacy once or twice a week, nothing too crazy, just steady and comfortable. I believed we were fine. After all, we had 2 kids, a home, and a life most people would be grateful for. I honestly thought love and loyalty mattered more than passion or excitement. But earlier this year, things began to change. I got a new job. It was more demanding than my old one and required traveling, sometimes overnight, 2 or 3 times a month. At first, it felt like an opportunity to prove myself. But being away from home, away from the safety of routine, being in hotels surrounded by new people, it stirred something inside me that I didn't expect. That's when I met him. I'll call him Jason. Jason wasn't even the type of man I usually found attractive. He wasn't especially handsome, but there was something about him. He carried himself with quiet confidence, and he had this way of paying attention to me that made me feel alive. He didn't see me as just someone's wife or just a mom. He looked at me like I was a woman worth noticing. It sounds silly, but that attention did something to me. At first, it was harmless. We talked during work trips, laughed during group dinners. Nothing inappropriate. But his small compliments, the way his eyes lingered on me, the way he asked about my life, it made me feel younger, almost like the woman I used to be before kids and responsibilities weighed me down. At home, John was still the same. He was stable, reliable, and always there for me. But with Jason, I felt a spark I hadn't felt in years. I started looking forward to work trips more than I should have. I told myself it was just a crush, that I would never act on it. But late at night, when I was alone in a hotel room and Jason's text popped up on my phone, I felt something dangerous growing inside me. And then, one night, I crossed the line. It happened about 5 months ago. Jason and I had spent the evening with coworkers after a long day of meetings. One by one, everyone left until it was just the 2 of us sitting at the bar. I could have said goodnight and gone back to my room. I should have. But I didn't. I stayed. The conversation shifted. He leaned closer and told me I looked beautiful. My heart raced. Nobody had said that to me in years. I told myself it was just harmless flirting, but deep down I knew I was already betraying John by even letting it continue. When we walked back to the hotel, Jason asked me if I wanted to come up to his room for one more drink. My whole body froze. I whispered, I shouldn't. But I followed him anyway. The moment we got inside, the air was heavy with tension. We barely touched our drinks before he kissed me. I could have pushed him away. I could have ended it right there. But instead, I kissed him back. It's hard to explain what was going through my mind. Part of me screamed at myself to stop, but another part, the part that had been starved of passion, of feeling wanted, took over. Clothes came off, and by the time it was over, I was lying in his bed realizing I had just thrown away 20 years of loyalty in one night. I felt sick. I hated myself. But at the same time, I also felt something I hadn't in years, desired. The next morning, I went to meetings as if nothing had happened. Then I came home to John, hugged him, kissed him, and told him the trip was fine. He smiled at me like nothing was wrong, and I lied right to his face. I told myself it was a one-time mistake, that I'd bury it and never do it again. But when Jason texted me later that week asking if I missed him, I replied. And with that one reply, I opened a door I could never close. After that first night with Jason, I told myself it could never happen again. I repeated those words in my head like a prayer. Never again. It was a mistake. I won't do it. But deep down, I already knew I was lying to myself. Because when the next business trip came around, I didn't just expect to see him. I wanted to. And when I saw Jason waiting in the hotel lobby, giving me that subtle smile only I understood, my knees went weak. All my guilt, all my promises to myself, they vanished in seconds. We ended up in his room again. And again after that. Before long, it wasn't just a mistake anymore. It was an affair. A secret life. At home, John was his usual self. He hugged me when I came back, asked about my trips, made me coffee in the morning. Sometimes he initiated intimacy. Other times I did, pretending everything was normal. And he never suspected, or maybe he did, and I was just too blind to see it. I had become two different women. One moment, I was the loyal wife and mom, cooking dinner, folding laundry, laughing at family jokes. The next moment, I was sneaking glances at my phone, waiting for Jason's messages, planning the next time we could be alone. And what scared me the most was how easily I managed to slip between those two lives. Jason made me feel wild, reckless, alive in ways I didn't know I craved. I let him do things with me that I had never allowed with John. I told myself it was because with Jason, I could be someone else, a younger, freer version of me. But the truth was darker. I wasn't just cheating on my husband's body. I was giving away pieces of my heart. The guilt, though, it was eating me alive. There were nights when I lay next to John, staring at the ceiling, wondering how I had become this person. How could I betray the man who trusted me completely? The man who gave me 20 years of loyalty and love. Sometimes I even thought of confessing. But then Jason's texts would come, and the guilt would blur into longing. For months, I convinced myself I was balancing it all perfectly. Marriage at home, affair on the road. Nobody knew. Nobody would ever know. But living a double life always leaves cracks, and soon, mine started to show. It began with small things. John noticed that I seemed distracted at times, staring at my phone a little too long. Once, I was smiling at something Jason sent me, and John asked casually, "What's got you grinning like that?" My heart almost stopped. I quickly lied and said it was something funny for my coworker group chat. He accepted it. Or at least he pretended to. Another time, when I came home from a trip, I initiated intimacy more eagerly than usual. Normally, John was the one who started things. But suddenly it was me, almost desperate. At first, he looked surprised, maybe even pleased, but then I noticed a flicker in his eyes, confusion, maybe even suspicion. One night, lying in bed, John asked me quietly, "Are you happy? With us? With me?" My throat went dry. I forced a smile and told him yes, of course I was happy, nothing was wrong. He kissed me and let it go, but I knew he didn't fully believe me. John was too smart, too observant. Still, I convinced myself he didn't know. That I was safe. That Jason and I could continue. And then, we did something that turned my affair from reckless to dangerous. Jason suggested we record ourselves. At first, I resisted. No way. What if someone finds out? But he told me it would be just for us, our secret. His voice, the way he looked at me, made me give in. And so we did. The first time I watched those videos, I felt two things at once: excitement and terror. Excitement, because I had never seen myself like that before. Terror, because I knew if John ever saw them, my entire life would be destroyed. But instead of stopping, I kept going. Each time Jason asked, I agreed. And each time, the risk grew bigger. Back home, John grew more distant. Not angry, not cold, just different. It was as if he was watching me closely, waiting for something. The way he looked at me sometimes made my stomach twist. I told myself I was imagining things. But deep down, a voice whispered, "He knows." I tried to ignore that voice. Until the day my world came crashing down. It happened when I was staying at my mother's house for a few days, helping her with errands. John stayed home. I didn't think twice about leaving my laptop behind because he rarely touched it. But that week, his computer broke, and out of convenience, he picked up mine. I had hidden everything carefully, or so I thought. But in one of those forgotten folders, the videos were there. The ones I swore would stay secret forever. John found them. I didn't know at the time. When I came home, I just felt something different in the air. John was quiet, calm, but not in a good way. His eyes were colder, harder, almost like he was studying me. I tried to act normal, but my stomach was twisting in knots. That night, I realized the truth. He knew, but he didn't confront me right away. He didn't scream. He didn't throw things. He just carried this terrifying silence. He moved around the house with a strange calmness, as if he had already made up his mind about something. I barely slept that night, every sound making me flinch. I was waiting for the explosion, but it never came. The next morning, I walked into the kitchen. John was sitting at the table with my laptop in front of him. His face was calm, too calm. He looked up at me and said quietly, "Sit down." My knees went weak. I sat. The silence between us was heavy, unbearable. And then he said the two words I had been dreading. "I know." Those words shattered me. Tears burned my eyes. I wanted to deny it, to lie, but what was the point? He had seen everything. "I saw the videos," he said, his voice steady but broken underneath. "All of them. You with him. Doing things you swore you'd never do." Laughing, smiling, begging, his voice cracked on that last word. Then he looked straight into my eyes and said something that cut deeper than anything else. "I don't even recognize the woman in those videos." I wanted to reach across the table, to grab his hand, to beg him to understand. But the way he looked at me, with disappointment, disgust, and heartbreak, told me nothing I said would matter. "I trusted you," he said. "You risked our marriage, our family, even our health. For what?" For him. I had no answer. My mouth opened, but nothing came out. Finally, John stood up, his face unreadable. "I'll be making arrangements. Don't follow me." And then he walked out the door. The sound of that door closing felt like the end of everything. When John walked out of the house that morning, it felt like the ground disappeared beneath me. The silence that followed was louder than any fight we could have had. I just stood there in the kitchen, staring at the door, praying he would come back. But he didn't. That night, the house felt like a graveyard. Every room carried his absence. The chair he usually sat in, the sound of his keys when he came home, even his half-empty coffee mug sitting on the counter, it all screamed at me. He's gone. I called him. He didn't answer. I texted long messages, begging him to talk to me, to let me explain, to give me one more chance. Nothing. Days passed. He didn't return. And then the envelope came. It was sitting in the mailbox one morning, thick and heavy. I opened it with shaking hands. Divorce papers. I fell to the floor, clutching them against my chest, sobbing until I could barely breathe. This wasn't just anger or distance. This was real. He was ending us. 20 years of marriage gone. Every memory came flooding back. The day we met, our wedding, the birth of our kids, the quiet nights we spent watching movies. And now all of it was reduced to legal paperwork. I wanted to fight it, to beg him face to face. But deep down, I knew I had no right. I had betrayed him in the cruelest way. He had seen everything with his own eyes. How could he ever forgive that? The nights became unbearable. I couldn't sleep. I clutched his pillow, crying into it until I had no strength left. The sound of his voice echoed in my head. "I don't even recognize the woman in those videos." He was right. I didn't recognize myself either. I tried to distract myself. I cleaned the house, watched TV, scrolled aimlessly on my phone. But nothing worked. The silence was suffocating. And then, in my weakness, I made another mistake. I picked up the phone and called Jason. When he answered, his voice was casual, almost bored. "Hey, what's up?" Hearing that tone broke me. Didn't he realize my whole life had just fallen apart? Through tears, I whispered, "He found out, Jason. John knows. He's gone. He filed for divorce. I don't know what to do. Can I see you? Please." There was a long pause. Then he sighed. "Maya, I didn't sign up for this drama. You said it was just fun. No strings." Those words hit me like a slap. Fun. That's all I had been to him. I choked back sobs. Fun? I destroyed my marriage for you. I lost everything. His voice grew colder. "That's on you, Maya. Don't put this on me. It was good while it lasted, but maybe it's time we stopped talking." I froze. My mind couldn't process it. After everything, the risks, the lies, the nights in hotel rooms, he was just discarding me like trash. "You're ending this?" I whispered. "I'm just being real. I have my own life. You should figure yours out." And then he hung up. I stared at my phone in disbelief. My hands were shaking. My chest felt like it was caving in. I had thrown away my husband, my marriage, my family for a man who didn't even care about me. Jason moved on instantly. To him, I had been nothing more than a temporary thrill. Now I was left with nothing. No husband. No family. No lover. Nothing. The days blurred together after that. I stopped eating properly. Some days I forgot to eat at all. My body felt weak, but the pain in my chest was heavier than hunger. Friends tried to reach out, but I ignored their calls. What could I say? That I ruined my own marriage for someone who never cared about me? I looked in the mirror one morning and barely recognized the woman staring back. My eyes were swollen from crying, my face pale, my smile gone. I whispered to myself, "What have you done?" Every memory of John haunted me. How he made me coffee every morning, even when he was running late. How he left the porch light on if I came home late. How he held me close at night, whispering that I was his whole world. And I threw it all away. For nothing. At night, I lay awake wishing I could turn back time, but I knew it was too late. Sometimes I even thought maybe I didn't deserve to keep living like this. Maybe the pain I felt was exactly what I had earned. But life has a cruel way of reminding you of the weight of your mistakes. Because one afternoon, there was another knock at the door. My heart pounded as I opened it. And there he was. John. My husband. The man I had loved and betrayed. He looked different. Stronger somehow. His face calm, but his eyes cold. The warmth I used to see was gone. "Can I come in?" he asked. His voice was quiet, steady. I stepped aside, my hands trembling. He sat down at the table, and I followed. I couldn't even look directly at him. He pulled out an envelope and placed it between us. My chest tightened. More divorce papers. "This is it," he said simply. "I can't do this anymore." Tears streamed down my face. "Please, John, please don't leave me. I'll change. I'll do anything." My voice cracked as the words tumbled out. But when I finally looked into his eyes, I knew it was useless. He wasn't angry anymore. He wasn't even sad. He was just done. "I loved you with everything I had," he said. "I would have given you the world. But you didn't want me. You wanted someone else. And now I have to live with that. The only difference is, I won't let it control my future. I'm moving on." I reached out, desperate to touch his hand. "Please, John, don't leave me." He shook his head. "I already left the day I saw those videos. This is just the paperwork to make it official." And then he stood up. For the first time in 20 years, he didn't hug me goodbye. He didn't even look back. He just walked out the door, leaving me alone. Forever. After John left for the final time, silence wrapped around the house like a heavy blanket. Every corner felt haunted by memories. His laughter, his footsteps, even the sound of him brushing his teeth at night. All gone. I walked from room to room like a ghost. The couch where we watched movies. The kitchen table where we ate dinner as a family. Our bed, where he once held me close. Everything reminded me of the love I had destroyed. The divorce papers sat on the counter like a death sentence. Every time I passed by, I felt the weight of them pressing on my chest. I couldn't bring myself to sign them. Signing meant it was real. Signing meant there was no chance of him ever coming back. But deep down, I knew he was already gone. Nights were the worst. The bed felt too big, too cold. I would lie awake, staring at the ceiling, my mind replaying every mistake I had made. The night at the bar, the hotel room, the lies, the videos. Each memory stabbed me again and again. I clutched John's pillow, pressing my face into it as if I could still smell him there. I whispered into the dark, "I'm sorry. Please forgive me." But no one was there to hear it. I tried calling him again, leaving voicemails filled with sobs and apologies. He never answered. I tried texting him, long paragraphs promising I would change, that I would do anything to fix what I had broken. The only response I ever got was silence. That silence became my punishment. I thought about Jason sometimes, but only with disgust. He had moved on without a second thought. To him, I had been nothing but a distraction, something to pass the time. He didn't care that my life had fallen apart. He didn't care that I had lost everything. And that was the cruelest part. I had betrayed John, the man who truly loved me, for someone who didn't care if I lived or died. The more I thought about it, the more the guilt crushed me. I remembered the small things John used to do. How he always made sure the porch light was on when I came home late. How he kissed my forehead before leaving for work. How he remembered my favorite coffee order, even after 20 years. I had thrown all of that away for a few moments of excitement. Some mornings, I stood in front of the mirror, staring at my reflection. My eyes were red and swollen, my skin pale. I looked older than my years, worn down by grief. I whispered to myself, "Who are you? How could you do this?" And every time I had no answer. Friends noticed the change in me. A few reached out, asking if I was okay. I lied to them. I couldn't bear to admit the truth, that I had destroyed my own marriage, that I was the reason John left, that I had betrayed the only person who ever truly loved me. The shame was unbearable. I avoided social gatherings, avoided neighbors, avoided anyone who might ask about John. The thought of explaining was too painful. I couldn't say the words out loud. I cheated. He found out. He left me. The loneliness grew heavier each day. The walls of the house seemed to close in on me. The silence screamed louder and louder. Some nights, I wondered if maybe I didn't deserve to keep living. Maybe the pain I felt was the punishment I had earned. But life dragged on, one miserable day after another. Weeks later, John returned briefly, just to collect the rest of his things. I tried to talk to him, begged him to stay. Tears streamed down my face as I reached for him. He didn't even flinch. His voice was calm, steady. "Maya, it's over. I loved you with everything I had, but you killed that love. I deserve better than lies and betrayal." Those words broke me more than shouting ever could. I collapsed onto the floor as he packed his suitcase. I cried, begged, pleaded. "Please, John, don't leave me. I'll change. I'll do anything. I can't live without you." He looked at me, his eyes hard, and said, "Maya, the woman I loved doesn't exist anymore. What's left between us isn't marriage, it's just memories." Then he walked out. For the last time, I never saw him again. After that, the house truly felt like a prison. Every photograph on the wall mocked me. Pictures of our wedding day. Photos of us smiling with the kids. Family vacations. Each image was a reminder of the woman I used to be, the loyal wife, the loving mother. That woman no longer existed. I had become someone else. Someone I didn't even recognize. Sometimes, I sat at the table staring at the divorce papers for hours, my tears staining the pages. Signing them felt like admitting that I had killed the best thing in my life with my own hands. But eventually I knew I would have to. John was moving on, building a new life without me. And me? I was left behind. My punishment wasn't just losing John. It wasn't just losing my marriage. It was living with myself, with the knowledge that I had betrayed the one person who gave me unconditional love, and that I could never undo it. At night. But the truth was, sorry would never be enough. John would heal. He would rebuild. He would find someone worthy of his love. and I would be left with nothing but regret. Forever.